Hello and welcome to another edition of Ideological. I'm your host, Zach Lee, and today we are talking about something that is very controversial within the topic of politics, and that is the issue of gun control. Okay, so I'm not going to show any on the screen just because people will freak out on TikTok, but gun control is what we're going to be talking about. Today's episode is brought to you by Pistol Fingers. Pistol Fingers. Pick up a girl at a bar. Hey, we're going to be talking about gun control, which is a controversial topic. Now, on Ideological, I typically don't take positions on issues. I just kind of give you the different views and then let you go home and argue with your friends and cause conflict at Thanksgiving with your family. But today I'm going to take a position. And the main reason I'm going to take a position is because politicians can politic and they can chat and scholars can chat. People are being shot and children are being shot and schools are being shot up and all this terrible stuff. And I just want that to stop. And so in the meantime, while we try to figure out the theory behind it, I have a view of what would actually stop it in the meantime while we're still talking. And so I want to promote that view in this video. So though on some issues I'll be more left-leaning, on others I'll be more right-leaning, I'm going to make a pretty strong case that gun control does not work. And so we need to be doing something that works because, again, I'm not trying to push a political agenda. I'm trying to keep kids in school from being shot. So let's ask what would practically work while we try to figure out the theory behind it. If you're somebody and this is just something you really hate, maybe you lost a loved one because they got shot or something like this. I'm sorry that happened. I would encourage you to keep an open mind though on this topic. If you're somebody that already has your mind made up and you're like, no, guns are obviously the worst. The Second Amendment's trash. We should totally get rid of that. Zach, you're a crazy gun-toting Texan, whatever. True though that may be, that's not an argument. You have to be open-minded and hear the other side, even if you hate gun stuff. Now, something people don't know about me is, in addition to being this august, erudite man of letters, I also have been a professional shooting instructor. I worked at with a firearms law company, so I'm uniquely educated on this topic, how it plays into just war theory, how it plays into the Second Amendment, how it plays into political views about when it is or is not right to take life. We're not doing all of that today. What we're going to go over today is really two things. I want to talk about the Second Amendment in context, and I want to talk about gun control statistics and such in the U.S. And so the case I'm going to make, and I'll just tell you, I'll just lay out my cards here, which I don't usually do. I think that no matter what restrictions you put around guns, people are going to find a way to get them or make them. You can make them with a 3D printer. I mean, guns are 1,000-year-old technology. It's not like that's like saying we should get rid of everyone sharpening sticks so no one can have a pokey stick. And you're like, they're just going to take a stick and just rub it on the concrete and it's going to become a weapon. So I don't think you're ever going to get rid of it. So knowing that that's the case, how do you prevent the mass shootings? How do you prevent the unrighteous shootings? And I think that is through having people that create a deterrent through being able to fight back. Again, don't put me in that camp of your angry right-wing uncle or whatever who, says weird stuff at Christmas. That's not what I'm trying to do. I want to look at it more objectively. I used to be, just to let you know, I used to be actually very anti-gun. I just thought, hey, let's just get rid of them. It's stupid. You don't need to have a right to this. Guns have changed. The Second Amendment's about muskets, all of that. I've changed my views over time because of what I've learned. So there it is, laying it all out for you. Let's talk about gun control and the Second Amendment in context. We'll start with the Second Amendment and lay some legal foundation, and then we will look at some of the statistics. So hang in there if you're like, how many people die from gun? I'm going to get to all that. What about Matt? I'm going to get to all that. As again, professional shooting instructor who also knows a shit ton about shooting and guns and tactics, here we go. Ready? Gun control. The Second Amendment context, it says this: a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Okay, that's the way the Second Amendment reads. Let's go over a few things that you might notice in that amendment. Here's the first one. The purpose of the amendment has nothing to do with hunting. I've heard a lot of people say, yeah, I like guns. I grew up hunting. I support the Second Amendment. And you're like, it has nothing to do with hunting. It's about hunting people. It's not about hunting. So notice it has nothing to do. Hunting was already allowed. That's how people had food back in the day. So you already have a right to hunt because that is the right to kill animals and eat them. Number two, second thing to notice is that the purpose of this amendment is to have a well-regulated militia. Okay. So for there to be people in the U.S. that could form a militia if they needed to fight back against someone trying to take their freedoms. That is the explicit purpose of the Second Amendment. Now, however, to be clear, though this mentions a militia, it includes self-defense from an attack always. Okay? You always have the right to defend yourself if you're being attacked. So, in fact, in 2008, the Supreme Court case District of Columbia, D.C. versus Heller, the Supreme Court held that, listen, quote, that the Second Amendment protects an individual right to possess a firearm unconnected with service in a militia and to use that arm for traditionally lawful purposes such as self-defense within the home. Additionally, the Second Amendment should, quote, guarantee an individual right to possess and carry weapons in case of confrontation. So what the Supreme Court decided, whether you like it or not, this is the ruling, which therefore also makes it law. The ruling is the Second Amendment, though it explicitly mentions a militia, it's certainly not limited to that. What is a militia is there to protect you from somebody trying to harm you or take your things. That is also called a right of self-defense. You already had that. Again, they don't have to go out and say the guns are for hunting. You could already hunt. They don't have to go out and say the guns are for protecting yourself. You've always been able to protect yourself. If someone's trying to kill you, you have a right to not be killed, and you have a right to fire back. Third thing to notice about this amendment is it does allow both for the owning and the bearing, right? The having with them or the carrying of firearms. And so there are people that say, yeah, you can own firearms, but you can't, have it on you to protect you in a road rage incident or whatever. I mean, then what good does it do? Now listen to this one. This one's controversial. The amendment doesn't restrict or even specify which types of guns are allowed and which are not. Okay. So there's a common objection to the Second Amendment that goes something like this. The Second Amendment is talking about the right to keep and bear arms, but the type of arms that they had back in the day were muskets. Today we have assault rifles, and we'll learn what that term does and doesn't mean in a second. Almost everybody misuses that term, and they don't know what an assault rifle is. Our weapons are so much deadlier today. They really just want us having muskets, the end. Here's the problem with that. It's conjecture. The text doesn't mention what kind of weapons you can have. Here's probably what's going on. What they're probably saying is that you have the right to the normal typical firearm that you would need to resist an outside invader or the government overstepping its bounds. Okay? So whatever soldiers are having back in the day, and by the way, the briskets, that's a combination of the British and the musket. This episode is brought to you by briskets. That's what old George Washington turned them into. So the briskets, it is for, the British had a common rifle like a musket. And so what they're probably saying is you have the right to have a common rifle like a musket to, resist these kind of things or resist the government, even if it tries to come for your rights or freedoms or life or whatever it might be. What does that mean when firearms change? Now the average soldier has a certain type of weapon. Should you not have the right then to have whatever that is? Or if we got invaded by China or Russia or somebody that, Red Dawn style was attacking America, what kind of rifles would they have? And would you have the right to have something that at least is somewhat equivalent? I don't think anybody, that's ridiculous. There are people that say this. It's not talking about your right to own an F-16. It's not talking about your right to own a nuke. So I'm fine when people say, hey, yes, civilians shouldn't own rocket launchers. I'm good with that. When we're just talking about the average type of rifle that a soldier might have in case you needed to be a militia or be a soldier, that's probably something that the Second Amendment would allow. So whatever would be comparable to current personal military weapons. Number 5, the purpose of the Second Amendment is to allow citizens to create a militia to protect themselves, notice from two things here, outside invasion, like Japan in World War II, because one of the reasons the Japanese said that they didn't attack mainland America was because there would be a gun around every corner, that it would turn every American into a soldier. But also, there is this idea that this militia and the right to bear arms might be to rebel against the government if the government oversteps its bounds. I'm not saying that's right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm not saying that's good. We can have a whole nother lesson on just war theory and right to, rebellion. When does a king or an elected body lose their rights? That's a different topic. But anyway, that is just a fast flyby, a fast flyover of the Second Amendment in context. So Just to summarize that, if you've already fallen asleep, what I need to do is I should just do a desk pop, right? Like from the other guys, the movie, just do a desk pop just randomly during this video.
Pop one off. There you go. Pop it off. Don't think, just go. Here we go. Do it, yes.
You did it! Shots fired! Hey, Terry, I did my first desk pop. It's a real thing, right?
Do I have guns in the room where I'm at right now? I'll never tell, but the answer is yes. I actually have several in here. Okay, this is Texas. What else? Okay, that's the Second Amendment in context. So what they're saying, what the framers of the Constitution are saying is governments tend towards tyranny and also outside invaders tend towards tyranny. So you should be able, as an American citizen, to have a gun. Yes, for hunting and self-defense. That's a given. That doesn't need to say, it doesn't need to say that explicitly, although that's certainly there by implication. If you have a right to take a gun and rebel against the government and overthrow it, you also probably have a right if someone's shooting at you to shoot back and protect yourself. So yes, for that, but it's probably talking originally about the ability for Americans to get together, have whatever we would consider a current personal military weapon, to get together for protection from outside invaders or from some sort of tyrannical government. That's probably what it is for. Okay. That's the Second Amendment. Don't get mad. Listen, some of you anti-gun people already, you hate it. Listen, I was once you. And I might agree with you on many other things. But I just telling people to get rid of guns doesn't stop bad guys from getting them, importing them, making them, and shooting people. So let's talk about gun control now. So we just talked about the Second Amendment. Let's talk about gun control. Let's first of all make fun of some stuff. I love making fun of stuff. Let's make fun of the media. Let's make fun of people who try to talk about this issue who are not educated on it, okay? To understand this issue, yes, you need to know politics. Yes, you need to understand constitutional law. Yes, you need the academic side. But you also need to know something about guns. And I see that when it comes to this issue, most people don't have training on both, which is why you should listen to what I'm saying. There's gun people, and they're like, we should take over the government. I need a tank. You don't want that guy. You heard his accent. I think you know where he's from. And then you have the other people, though, that are like, these assault rifles have with a chainsaw bayonet and they have no idea what they're talking about. They use words like clip, and they think a bump stock is something the military uses and such. So it's dumb. So let's make some fun of some people, and let's talk about some common misunderstandings of gun-related terms, and also some correct understandings of gun-related terms. So let me give you some definitions, and then I'll give you the statistics on gun control statistics in America. But let's go over some of these terms so we know what we are and are not saying. First of all, what is gun control? Here's a great definition of gun control. The set of laws or policies that regulate the manufacture, sale, transfer, possession, modification, or use of firearms by civilians. That's what gun control is. By the way, most people, including myself, advocate for some form of gun control. I like that you can't take a gun onto a plane. But I also like how nobody can, because they've got guards and TSA and all of that, so you know that you're safe. So as long as you know you're safe and there's air marshals, fine. I'm fine with you not taking a gun onto a plane. I don't think you should own a nuclear weapon. I don't think civilians should own grenades, these kind of things. So everyone, not everyone, again, there's always the exceptions. Many people would agree that with some type of gun control, even if they don't think that you should have it in a kindergarten classroom or something. The question is, where do you land on that spectrum? Let's go for the next term when it comes to this topic, or phrase rather, gun-free zone. What is a gun-free zone? We're going to see how many people get killed in gun-free zones in just a second. But first, let's explain what it is. A gun-free zone is this. It's a location where a licensed weapons permit holder may not bring their firearm. Okay? So a gun-free zone is not a place where somebody cannot bring a gun. If that were the case, we would just make all of America a gun-free zone and no one would get murdered. We would just make all of America a drug-free zone and no one would do drugs. We'd make all of America like a stealing-free zone and no one would steal. Remember, bad guys are always going to do what they're going to do. Bad guys are going to do what they're going to do. They don't care about the laws. It's not like somebody's going in to shoot up a movie theater and all of a sudden they get to the sign and they're like, oh, this place doesn't allow guns. Well, I don't want to break any laws other than murder, and so I'm going to go put this back in my car. A gun-free zone, and you'll find out this is where most mass shootings happen, by the way. A gun-free zone is where a good guy cannot have a gun. It is where somebody who has been fingerprinted, been trained, been licensed, is a legal citizen that is not crazy. They're not allowed to have one for self-defense. It's a self-defense free zone. It's not a gun-free zone. Bad guys can always bring guns there. Think about that. Here's the next one. I love this one. An AR. What about the AR-15? AR does not stand for assault rifle. AR stands for Armalite Rifle. It's the company that originally produced a design made by a guy named Eugene Stoner. So Eugene Stoner creates this design for a particular type of rifle, and a company called Armalite Rifles is the one that decided to manufacture them. That is why it is called an AR. It does not stand for assault rifle. What is an assault rifle? In one sense, there is no such thing. I'm going to give you a military definition of an assault rifle in a second, but first, hear this thought. In one sense, there is no such thing as an assault rifle. Do you know why? Because assault is an action. It's something you do, okay? It's not like I take a pencil and then I stab you with it and you say, it's an assault pencil. No, it's just a pencil and I've used it to assault, okay? One of my favorite news headlines one time talked about a guy wearing, quote, assault pants. This episode is brought to you by Assault Pants. Assault Pants. Why do you need so many pockets? So again, I don't think there are such things as assault pants. I think those are just like well-fitting pants with pockets, probably. So in one sense, assault is an action. It's not but there is a military definition of an assault rifle, but it's one that must include selective fire, meaning you have to be able to flip it to 3-round burst or fully auto or something like that. And it's then considered an assault rifle. Civilian model ARs or AR-15s are not assault rifles by definition. They do not meet that definition. If you didn't know that, you should go look in a mirror and you should frown. You know why? Because you're looking at the problem. Okay. Let's talk about the term semi-automatic. Okay, semi-automatic. A semi-automatic firearm is a firearm that fires one round with each press of the trigger. So bang, 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 bang. That is semi-automatic. Okay, we have had semi-automatic rifles since the 1800s, maybe even before that. That's just a normal firearm. So when people are like, we got to get rid of semi-automatic rifles, you're like, wait, like 150-year-old technology that like just fires one round each time you pull the trigger? You just mean a normal rifle. That's what semi-automatic means. It's not some sort of like fancy, scary, whatever. That is different than fully automatic. Fully automatic is where the gun continues to fire when you hold down the trigger. So semi-automatic, bang, bang, bang. Fully automatic, hold down the trigger, right? Like what you think of as a machine gun or something like that. That would be a fully automatic weapon. Do you like the sound I made? I should have brought like a... Oh, never mind. There's some things I could have brought to make funny sounds, but I'm glad I didn't now, as I think more about it. So my favorite is I've also heard, I think after a mass shooting, somebody came on the news and they said that the gun was a fully semi-automatic. And I'm like, whoa. I don't even know if you know what you're talking about. So there's no such thing as a fully semi-automatic. Another term you'll hear culture misuse on the gun control topic is the term high capacity magazine. Okay. What the news, what online, what social media means when they say high capacity magazine is a standard capacity magazine. Okay, so they make it sound like it's really scary and military when it's just totally normal. Let me put it into perspective for you. The average police officer, at least where I live, the average state trooper in the state of Texas, who have more training than the average police officer, actually. They're like the state police. They miss 80% of their shots under stress. Trained shooters who have good training, some of whom were in the military before becoming part of law enforcement, miss 80% of their shots under stress. Okay, well, if you're going to miss 8 out of 10 shots and you get attacked by 2 people, and those 2 shots might not even like kill them or stop them right away. If you hit them in the arm or it goes through their body and doesn't hit, some sort of major organ or blood-bearing part of your body, how many shots do you need to stop 2 assailants? Would you need 20? So a 17-round magazine, which is like a standard for like a Glock handgun or something that's full size, or a 30-round magazine for a rifle is very normal. Those are not high capacity. Those are normal magazines because you're scared and you're shaking, you miss shots and you're bleeding and people are shooting back at you. People don't understand that in a real shooting, things are not clear and clean and crisp. I would highly recommend 2 books for you if you're interested in this kind of topic. They both come from Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman, who's a West Point psychologist and former Army Ranger. So he's got the tactical side and he studies the psychology. He's devoted his entire life to studying the effects of killing in combat on like veterans. And so he talks about all the things your body does under stress and all that. It's really, really fascinating. So highly recommend that if you want to hear more about this. Another phrase you'll hear misused or term you'll hear misused is clip. Okay? People say, pass me another clip. A clip is a strip of metal to which you attach or insert rounds, and they're used in much older weapon systems, such as like an M1 Garand, like back in World War II. When most people say clip, what they mean to say is magazine. Okay? Most modern firearms are not going to use clips. So a clip would be like a strip of metal you'd attach rounds to and put it in your firearm. To say it another way, clips feed magazines and magazines feed guns. So people, when they say, hand me a clip, it's usually not a clip, it's a magazine. And they don't know, again, what they are talking about. Here's another phrase I like to see in culture and on social media, military style. It was a military style weapon. That is a term used for a completely regular rifle, whether it's used in the military or not, just because it looks cool. Okay, just because it's painted black, or they're trying to make a regular rifle sound like you're an extremist by saying it's military style. Again, he was wearing military style pants when he shot up the school, or he was wearing a military style haircut, and you're like, he just had short hair, dude. Like, give him a break. I mean, not if he shot up the school, don't give him a break, but give him a break for his hair. Gun violence. This is another term you hear. Let me tell you why this term is completely unhelpful. That's just violence done by a firearm. The reason that's unhelpful is it doesn't distinguish between righteous versus unrighteous gun violence. It doesn't distinguish between lawful versus unlawful gun violence. Let me say it stronger. The Nazis were stopped with gun violence. The Nazis were not stopped by conversation. They were not stopped through diplomacy. They were stopped with gun violence. Some gun violence is good. So when people talk about gun violence or how many people were shot, I want to know, well, wait, should they have been shot? Was this a good shooting? Was this a lawful shooting? Do you mean unlawful gun violence? That's bad. Or do you mean lawful gun violence? You're actually going to find that most of the times that when they say something like gun violence or people died from gun violence, I wouldn't say most, I'd say a lot of the time, you will find out that is overwhelmingly self-defense, and it's actually a good type of gun violence. So you need to distinguish between good and bad gun violence. Okay. You with me still far? Are you mad? Have you shot your screen yet? Just kidding. If you hate this, then you probably don't have a gun, and that's fine. You know, to each their own. When things get crazy or if the grid goes down, you're toast. So I don't actually think the grid will go down. It's fine. Gun control statistics in the U.S. Okay. Statistics. Let me just name some terrible things in the world. Cancer, rape, murder, statistics, people who take their shoes off on airplanes. There's several bad things in the world. Statistics is one of them, and statistics can be misused. And so what I've tried to do, and yes, there could be other statistics I'm sure you could throw at me, and then we'd have to fight about who has a better resource and what practically works. That's fine. I've tried to use statistics that are very strong and relevant to the gun control issue. And I've tried to use statistics, listen to this, almost solely from more liberal or left-leaning sources so that you don't think I'm just stacking the deck. So this doesn't come from some like kind of dumb right-wing Fox News article or something. Like this is a bit more objective. I like to pretend I'm being objective. Everyone has their biases. Again, maybe I'll do one on weed soon and talk about why it should absolutely be legal, and it's dumb for conservatives to try to control the morality of things that only affect an individual physically. But in this one, we're talking about guns. So gun control statistics in the U.S. Are you ready? Let me give you two, and then I'll tell you the source that it comes from. In the United States, for every one firearm-related homicide, there are 80, that's 80, cases where a firearm is used in self-defense. This means that one is 80 times more likely to use a firearm in self-defense as a way to preserve innocent life than they are to use it in an unlawful way to take an innocent life. A similar study done under the Clinton administration, a more liberal administration, concluded that there are almost 50 cases of self-defense gun use for every one gun-related homicide. Did you hear what I just said? Between 50 and 80 people are protected by using a gun in self-defense for every one homicide. That's a strong statistic. How about this? Also, each year there are more than 200,000 cases of sexual assault that are prevented by women carrying firearms. So if a guy gets a little too handsy and is a little sexual assaulty, that's the adjective, you pull out that firearm and you let him know. And by the way, now's a good time for a disclaimer. None of this is legal advice on what to use for a firearm for or when you'll go to jail. This is just me talking. Know that. For what I just said and what I'm about to say, it's going to cover backwards and forwards, okay? But it allows women to protect themselves better when they have access to firearms. This is one of the things interesting in Israel. The women are required to be in the military, the IDF as well. And so they're trained with firearms and Krav Maga and knives and all this. And so the rates of rape in Israel are like super low compared to the rest of the world because those girls know how to fight. Zach, where does that come from? Does that come from some sort of... Is that a Elon Musk tweet that you got that info from? No, this actually comes from Northwestern University. This comes from their Journal of Criminal Law and Criminology from Northwestern University in an article entitled Arm Resistance to Crime. Next, interesting statistic here. The United States has the highest per capita gun ownership in the world. Yeah, America. Highest per capita gun ownership in the world. Now listen, if more guns cause more murders, and that was the primary issue, then we should have the highest per capita murder rate in the world. Do you understand what I just said? If we have the highest per capita, gun ownership in the world, per capita, we have the most guns per people. If more guns cause more murders, and that was, again, the main issue, we should have the highest per capita murder rate in the world. Where do you think the U.S. ranks in per capita murder rate? You think we're in the top 50? Nope. Think we're in the top 20? Nope. Think we're in the top 5? Nope. America, the United States, ranks 121st in per capita murders when compared with the rest of the world. This means, pay attention. Again, you might hate this. Oh, I hate Zach. I disagree with your statistic. This one's hard to argue with. This means there are 120 other countries with less guns and more violence than the U.S. So less guns per capita, but more murders per capita. Zach, does that come from some concern? Nope. That comes from the Global Study on Homicides from the United Nations. The United Nations is not a conservative body. The United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime in 2013. Zach, aren't guns dangerous for children? Zach, if we could just get rid of guns, which, by the way, you cannot do. Remember, that's impossible. That's a fake. Let me pause here to say something that's really important. What some people will say is this. They'll kind of take a strange version of a prisoner's dilemma, and what they'll say is something like this. If you're in a prison and you have access to a gun, you are safer because you have that gun, but everyone else is more at risk because you have one. So the safest thing is to have no one in the prison have guns, and then everyone would be more safe. I'm fine with that. But what if you had a prison that you knew would always have guns, where people could smuggle them in, they could make them, they could trade them, there would always be guns in the prison? Well, then the safest thing for you would be to have one as well. You will never get rid of gun ownership. You will never get rid of illegal gun ownership, even if you get rid of legal gun ownership. So knowing that that's not real, now let's play in the realm of real and figure out a way to keep people from being shot, okay? Unlawfully. Zach, we got to get rid of the guns. We can't do that. But so many children, they just get access to their parents' guns and they shoot themselves. Great. You've made a great case for getting rid or making illegal terrible parenting. You haven't made a case for guns. But let's go over the statistics. Aren't guns dangerous for children? In 1 year, how many people in the United States, how many children, discharge a firearm accidentally because it was not properly locked up? The answer in the U.S. is 69. About 69 children accidentally discharge a firearm that's not properly locked up. That's not how many who die. That's just they accidentally fire around. To put this in perspective, there are twice as many children who die from bicycles each year than who die from firearms. That comes from the annual report of the CDC. Again, not a conservative organization. You remember them during COVID. The CDC from one of their annual reports. Next, listen to this. This one comes from the Harvard Journal of Law and Public Policy. I don't know if you've heard of Harvard. It's kind of a big deal. It used to be a good school. Now it's kind of, I think I read recently that like something about over 80% of their students get handed out an A- or above. So it's gone down in quality. It's not quite what it used to be, but certainly not a conservative institution. Would banning firearms reduce murder and suicide? Which is a famous article from this journal. Listen to this quote. In 2004, the U.S. Academy of Sciences released its evaluation from a review of 253 journal articles, 99 books, 43 government publications, and some original empirical research. It failed to identify any gun control that had reduced violent crime, suicide, or gun accidents. The same conclusion was reached in 2003 by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control's review of then-existent studies. It's pretty strong. That's an older statistic. Doesn't make it irrelevant. It's actually very close to the time of a lot of mass shootings. But there you go. But Zach, can't we just ban guns like England? Let's use England, okay? The United Kingdom, this is a fun statistic. The United Kingdom, where firearms ownership is severely restricted, it has 4 times the amount of violent crime as the U.S. Remember, you can't just take into account mass shootings. You have to take into account stabbings. You have to take into account rape. You have to take into account people being murdered with other things. This comes from from Richard Edwards. UK is violent crime capital of Europe in the Telegraph in 2009. Okay, so I mean, every once in a while you'll see, if you follow them on social media, the government in England will send out something about knife crimes and how it's illegal to have a knife and how no one should have a knife. And you're like, wait, sounds like I should at least maybe have one to protect me from all the other people you just said have knives and are stabbing people. This next one comes from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI's annual report in 2011. Listen to this. Assault rifles, Zach. Rifles, they're so deadly, they're killing so many people. Listen to this. Each year, there are about 323 homicides committed with rifles in the U.S. In comparison, about 496 people are killed with hammers or clubs. This means that blunt objects account for 60% more deaths than so-called assault rifles. Maybe we need background checks for hammers. Like you go into Home Depot, you got to put your name on a list. I mean, these are strong statistics. Far more people die from hammers and clubs than rifles in the United States every year. Let me give you another one. This comes from John Lott. It's called Guns in Schools Can Save Lives. It was in USA Today, 2012. Gun-free zones are perhaps the most notorious killers. Listen to this. According to John Lott, a chief economist with the U.S. Sentencing Commission, listen to this quote. With just one exception, every public mass shooting in the USA since at least 1950 has taken place where citizens are banned from carrying guns. Despite strict gun regulations, Europe has had 3 of the worst 6 school shootings. He also writes, killers go where victims can't defend themselves. In the Aurora, Colorado movie theater shooting, out of the 7 theaters showing the Batman movie premiere within 20 minutes of the suspect's apartment, only 1 banned permitted concealed handguns. The suspect didn't go to the closest nor the largest, but to the one that banned self-defense. Now, there have been a few more shootings since then that were not in gun-free zones. But again, that's a powerful thing to notice, that bad guys go where good guys cannot shoot back. They're not looking for a gunfight. They're usually not trained. The kind of people that shoot up the schools and stuff, they're usually not like former snipers or something like this. They're like the kids who draw, right? They're like the artist kids that were made fun of, and then they're like, I will make you feel my pain. And so that's what happens. And so they go somewhere to play God, to just take life. And so the one he references here, that the Batman movie premiere that happened in Aurora, Colorado, the guy that shot up that theater went to one because it didn't allow people to shoot back at him. He also had on body armor. He also took Xanax before he went to calm his body down because he knew what his body would do under stress. There you go. Let me give you some additional facts about mass shooting. Do we need a break? Let's take I need a little water break. Additional facts about mass shootings. There are about 371 million guns in the U.S. Whoa, again, America. Okay. 371 million guns in the U.S., meaning there are about as many guns as there are people. It's awesome. The idea that you could actually buy them all back, and by the way, there's no buy back, you didn't own them to begin with, but the idea that you could buy them all back or destroy them all without bad guys keeping some is virtually impossible. It is kind of an asinine suggestion. A complete gun ban or government buyback, in addition to being unconstitutional, isn't a real solution. This is not a place like Britain. It's not a place like Australia, where you don't typically have everybody having a bunch of guns. Guns have been in our DNA since our inception. And so knowing that the bad guys would not turn them in, knowing that the bad guys would smuggle them across the border, what then do you do? And you have to have a way to stop them. That will not prevent the murders. You'll never be able to stop shootings. You'll never be able to stop murders. You'll never be able to stop mass shootings. Once you realize that that's life, that's real, now the question is, how do you minimize it? How do you have less people do it? And if every time somebody went into a school to shoot it up, they got shot right away, people would stop doing that so much. Some would still try, but the results would also be less catastrophic. Mass shootings are over typically in, how long does it take? 5 minutes or less. Most mass shootings are over in 5 minutes or less. So when people say, you don't need a gun, you can just call the cops. Most mass shootings are over in 5 minutes or less. Do you know the average police response time in the United States? It's 10 minutes. They're there to pick up body parts. The average shooting in the U.S. just among individuals is about 3 seconds. Mass shooting, 5 minutes. Police response time, 10 minutes. So the idea of we don't need guns, you could just call the police. I'm always pretty close to me. Check this out. I'm here. I'm also here now. Like I have a tendency to go everywhere that I am. The police are not always next to me. Okay. Columbine, by the way, took 47 minutes, which was really awful because what was unique about Columbine is typically when somebody, went into a school like that or whatever, they were taking hostages. They had some demands. They wanted something. And so they were showing up, trying to negotiate and go slow and not send people in. And so the killers just kept killing people. So now when there's a shooting, cops rush in really quickly to stop it because now it's just about body count, whereas it used to be about like negotiation or a ransom or something like that. Let's talk about the deadliest mass shootings in U.S. history. You ready? You've probably heard of these. Now I'm going to show you some interesting things about these. First of all, the concert in Las Vegas in 2017. That is the most deadly shooting in mass shooting, with 60 people killed and a lot. I'm not going to include the injured. There's a lot more injured, but 60 people killed at the concert at Las Vegas. Number 2 is the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, Florida in 2016, where 49 people died. The Virginia Tech shooting in 2007, a lot of people know about that one. That had 32 deaths, 32 casualties that died, excuse me. 4, this one was very sad, Sandy Hook in 2012. There were 27 people who died. Number 5, the church in Sutherland Springs in 2017. There were 26 people that died. The El Paso Walmart in 2019 had 23 people who died. Number 7, Uvalde in 2022 had 21 people who died, and it was not handled well by law enforcement. Number 8, the shooting in Parkland, Florida in 2018 had 17. Number 9, San Bernardino. I don't know if you remember that one. In 2015, there were 14 people that were killed. And then Fort Hood in 2009 had 13. Now, there's more than that, but those are the top 10. Let me give you some interesting facts about those top 10. You ready? An assault rifle was not used for a single one of them. Civilian model AR-15s were used in some. Only handguns were used in others. But again, an assault rifle, we need to ban assault rifles. They're causing the mass shootings. They're not even used in any of the top 10. I'm not even sure that there's been any mass shootings in the U.S. that were done by an actual assault rifle with select fire, an actual military weapon. They were just done with civilian rifles that people use for self-defense or hunting that look cool. Listen to this next one. Every single one of them was in a gun-free zone. Of the top 10 mass shootings, every single one of them was in a gun-free zone. It was a place where you were not permitted to bring your firearm if you were a concealed carry holder. People could not shoot back, which is why they can just kill all the people. You just have to run or hide or fight or whatever, and everybody's just cramming out the door, and there's nobody shooting back. If you get shot back, even if somebody shoots back and they miss, and all of a sudden you're like, oh man, this has just changed the game. Every single one of these was in a gun-free zone. That's who gets people killed. Gun-free zones. Now, these are tragic. Let me be clear. I've made some jokes. I do that for levity. This is a heavy topic. We're talking about shooting. We're talking about guns. We're talking about something that's politically contentious. I get it. I've said all these things, trying to keep it light. This is heavy. Okay, so I'm not trying to make light of this. I'm trying to say we have to do something different. What we need to do different is to kill the killers quickly. Then they won't be able to keep killing. In fact, there are a lot of people that went to commit mass shootings and somebody with a firearm shot back and killed them, and it therefore didn't become a mass shooting. So another dumb thing you'll hear on the news is they'll say, people having guns hasn't ever stopped a mass shooting. You're like, that's because it didn't become a mass shooting because they did stop it. Like the person wanted to do a mass shooting and they fired their gun and then they instantly got shot. And so it didn't become a mass shooting. So they did stop a mass shooting. You can't say that they stopped it after it was already a mass shooting, or else then you'd say they didn't stop. So the logic of people is not good. So I realize all of this is heavy, but I want to put this in perspective. I'm not saying it's okay. I want to put this in perspective. Of those top 10 that I just read to you, that's a total of 282 people, which is tragic. That's a lot of loss of life. But I want to put that in perspective to see if these mass shootings, like we think in America, mass shootings happening every day, that's 282 people in the top 10 of all time in American history. To put that in perspective, 172,000 people die each day worldwide, and 8,400 people die each day just in the U.S. 108 people just in the U.S. die each day just from car crashes. So, yes, they're bad, but this is not like when people talk about an epidemic of mass shootings. No. To say it another way, if every day the top 10 mass shootings all happened, all 10 of these happened every single day, it would take 609 days in a row for as many people to die as normally die every day from other things. Cars kill way more people than guns, right? So it's insanity. It's insanity. So I don't care your view. You don't have to have a gun or get a gun. You don't have to like guns, whatever. All I'm trying to say is this is not really a question about guns. It's not really a question about rights. It's a question about human nature. It's a question to say, what do people do? We will never get rid of murders. We'll never get rid of mass shootings. Again, even in places where they're not allowed to have it, or even in the mass shootings that happen in Europe, where you're not allowed to have guns. Like, people are going to be people. People are going to be selfish. People have evolved to dominate and to protect self and all these kind of things. That's what they're going to keep doing. And so you can protect yourself or you can't, but you can't stop the bad guy. Just hoping the bad guys will stop being bad, hoping the bad guys will follow the laws, hoping the bad guys can't get access to guns. That's like saying, I hope they can't get access to drugs. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's just naive. So that's gun control on this heavy episode of Ideological. I hope you loved it. Learn, tweet, send it to your right-wing friends so they get geeked out. Send it to your left-wing friends to piss them off. Both will love it. And then I'll do another episode on something else and you can reverse it for your friends. So thanks for joining in. We'll see you next time. Ideological.